Hi, this is Dee. Welcome to the Age of Aquarius. I want to tell you a story. When I opened this channel, it was about the Sword of Destiny. It was in the code 620, Excalibur. So that sword is nothing about anything but truth and clarity. The swords in the tarot deck represent the ethereal, air. The Age of Aquarius. I have a story to tell you. Everything down here has been inverted. And what I have always been passionate about is finding out the truth and sharing it with you. I knew that the truth was paramount. Absolutely paramount in this journey that I've been on. A journey that involves Gabriel and Inanna, also known as Inky and Enlil. It involves the gods. It involves the tetramorph. And so much more, I have to tell you. I have to tell you as much as I can. And trust me, I don't know everything. I learn things from you and you learn things from me. It's because those of you that know it have a spark of divinity inside of you. And where that spark came from was the goddess. She's known by many names. Inanna, Ishtar, Helena, Artemis, Columbia. The ones that started this country, the United States of America, George Washington was part of the original Freemasons group that knew the truth about this. They knew it. She gave you a piece of her so that you would have souls, so that you could be one day like the gods. We entered into the Age of Aquarius starting on June 20th, 2020. I showed you the cards, the significance. A lot of people did calculations on when we entered the Age of Aquarius. They said that the Mayan calendar ended in 2012. But as you know, everything down here has been tampered with. Everything. Everything's been made to confuse all of us, including myself. But I've been following those breadcrumbs for years now. Trying to get at the truth so I can share it with you. And Adonai and Gabriel tried to convince me to start this channel. It's interesting, the word channel, right? Am I channeling them? Perhaps. Am I channeling my higher self? That would be absolutely correct. It took them a long time to get me to open this channel. And when I did, I had no idea what was in store. No idea. All I knew was I was going to share paranormal experiences and have some fun with it. I had no idea where it was leading. So, the clay people, they call you the clay people because you were partially made from hominids that already existed here. And partially from Mother Earth herself. It's all about your DNA and genetics. If you read about the Sumerian text, you know that they were geneticists, scientists. They created you. All the beautiful shades of brown that I see. They've tried to divide you by race. You're all one race. And those of you that are looking and seeking, you know that you've been lied to. You felt it since you were little. You knew something was really wrong. I did when I was a child. I was like, something's very wrong here. Something's very wrong about what they're teaching everybody. I knew it. There was a lot of questions that nobody could answer. You know, when you go to church and things don't make sense and things don't add up in the Bible, that's because that was tampered with. Everything has been. So, you seek out the truth. You want to know what's really going on, right? So did I. Because you all knew deep down inside that little spark that the goddess gave to you so that you could one day become gods yourselves. That little spark inside of you was telling you, something's wrong, something's not right here. And you were right. I sigh because it really bothers me a great deal that we were all lied to. Anyway, I'm going to introduce you to some information, hopefully that'll help you understand this crazy path I've been on, trying to understand why they wanted me to do this channel. We are indeed in the age of Aquarius. We are on day 3 AOA. That ring of fire where the moon eclipsed the sun on the summer solstice, that was the sign in the sky letting you know. A lot of scientists and people that know that the calendars were tampered with are well aware that the Mayan calendar technically ended on the 20th of this year, June 20th, 2020. And immediately we go into the 21st with the Ring of Fire, where the moon eclipses the sun. The moon represents the goddess. She eclipsed the sun. The sun represented Pisces, represents Enki, Adonai. He came, he incarnated here to try to help save you. If you look at the Sumerian text, Inanna and Enki, tag team, trying to do that for you. Some of you, and he was successful at setting you free. Some of you. Sadly, his treatment and the disbelief of others, it didn't end well. He did not die on that cross. They made it out of that area. The bloodline made it out of that area. And they had children. Mary Magdalene and Adonai, they had children. And the lies they told in the media, they said that there was only one person existing on earth that had the DNA of Adonai, aka Jesus. That was in a complete fabrication. That bloodline represents probably a minimum of 30% of the planet. 30% or more. So that bloodline is very alive and well. Sort of. We discussed the genetics and how what I call the virus has been attacking your genetics. It's because of who and what you are. They want to control you. They do it via media, education, and religion. They've been manipulating you and keeping you as slaves. This is a prison planet. Didn't used to be. The most clever prison of all is one without bars. And the ones in that prison not realizing they're in it. Remember, we discussed the eights, the triple eights, the vision I got on Valentine's Day last year. Excuse me. The triple eights. There's several males stepping forward, trying to become someone for you to follow. Remember what I showed you about the triple eights, where it led me? Many are going to be deceived. Many. Because they're all thinking that their savior is a male. Because that's what they've been told. So anybody that steps forward as a leader, someone who is trying to guide you, They would be the Antichrist. I showed you that. So try to remember that. The 888s. There's a lot dealing with that number. The goddess. Columbia. There's a lot that you need to know about her. This is a statue in Washington, D.C. She wears a crown of the 5-pointed star. That 5-pointed star represents the goddess. The United States Capitol was named after her, District of Columbia. It's interesting because there's an S here where the cloth is gathered between her, at her solar plexus, between her breast. I'd have to do some research, but I'm sure that has a lot to do with the name Sumerian. It also could have something to do with the Angel of the South. Something interesting happened when we entered this age of Aquarius. The north and south nodes were exactly at 0. And the south node, the south node was planted firmly at 0 with the moon and the sun on either side of it. Remember, the moon just eclipsed the sun. Coming out of the age of Pisces, the sun, the fisher of men, Adonai. This is the genius of the Hopi prophecy. This is the white buffalo woman of the Sioux, Lakota, Dakota prophecy. The goddess. You know, it's interesting, that code 620 and events that happened on 620. The United States, the seal for the United States was done on June 20th. Also, the naming of this nation was done on that same day, 3 years later. Also, the Space Shuttle Columbia was launched on this day too. Interesting ending for the Space Shuttle Columbia. I'll share that with you later. Some more betrayal. But almost from the moment the New World was discovered, it was seen in mythological terms as an exotic goddess, an Indian queen, dressed in feathers and furs, riding an exotic beast like an armadillo and armed with a tomahawk. The Catholic South adapted the idea of the goddess of the New World into the ever-expanding hagiology of the Catholic Church. The Virgin Guadalupe allowed the archetype to become personal, a connection to the land and its ancestors, while joining a larger universalist vision inside the church. In the largely Protestant North, things went quite differently. The 17th century Indian goddess became a tamer Indian princess, modeled on the archetypal story of Pocahontas. As the 18th century passed and America grew more developed and its people more educated or uneducated, the Indian princess gained a touch of Greek elegance. By the late 1790s, folk art historian Nancy Jo Fox comments, "It was not clear whether a feathered Indian princess had changed into a Greek goddess or whether a Greek goddess had placed feathers or plumes in her hair. They are one and the same." The Descent of Inanna, the stories about her and Adonai, Enki, coming to hell, trying to save you. You have to remember, you are the fallen angels. You were cast down or out of heaven. This 3D holodeck that you're on right now was supposed to be a playground of sorts. Well, somebody took it upon themselves to cast you down, trap you, and harvest your energy. That's because she was betrayed. She would never have allowed that. You have a spark of her inside of you. She would never have allowed that. She is your mother. But she was betrayed. More times than you could know. By the way, the word virgin just means wisdom. So if you're expecting a goddess that's a virgin, you would be sorely disappointed. The reason some of you are so messed up, well, there's a lot of reasons. But trust me, the soap opera of the gods is just as bad or worse than the soap opera that you all have been living. So try not to feel shame over any things that you've done out of desperation, because you're merely acting like the gods. You are mini-me's. Fledgling gods. Some of you are awakening, and you know what I'm talking about. Some of you are more aware than others what I'm talking about. The goddess is in the movie Lucy. The goddess is also in the movie Fifth Element. You all have a piece of her inside of you, ergo you are also the fifth element. If you haven't visited those two movies, because it's interesting, because what I call the virus has to go by cosmic and karmic law. And they have to tell you the truth mixed in with lies. And then there's those that are awake that wanted to, well, the truth is hidden in plain sight. And you'll see it in movies and things like that. And you don't understand what you're seeing, but they're putting the truth right out in front of you. And you think it's just a fiction, fun thing to watch. Thing is, it's the truth. The movie Queen of the Damned. The goddess is the Queen of the Damned, the fallen. But the movie told a lie. There was a lie in that movie. They show her betraying Enlil. It was absolutely the other way around, and I can prove it. Will she betray him now? Now that we've entered into the age of Aquarius? It's not betrayal, it's destiny. Remember, talked about the movie Lucy. Remember, and you can look into this, they found some bones that they claim as the original primordial human, where all humans came from. Every human on this planet is linked to that DNA. In Africa. And they named that being Lucy. It's because they knew who Lucy was. Lucy is Lucifer. She was God's chosen one. It's not a male. It's not a male, like they've been telling everybody. And she's not bad either, like they tell everybody. And the number 666 is not bad either. It's the number of man, of human. All the lies they told you. I'm here to hopefully rectify that. Hopefully set you free for once. Finally. Set you free. I'm just going to read from this page. Most feminine virgin goddess symbolism comes from the constellation Virgo. And yes, my birth chart, I am a Virgo moon. The Virgin Virgo was impregnated by God on the spring equinox as the sun passed into Virgo on March 21st. Remember the saying, as above, so below. 9 months later, the Son of God was born on the winter solstice. Keep in mind, when they use the word king, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a male. The king is a queen. And when they say the word Son of God, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a male. God's Son is born, or rather reborn, every year after the sun stops on the Tropic of Capricorn for 2 days. And on the 3rd day rises from death and is reincarnated into the world. It then proceeds to come back towards the northern hemisphere as the light of the world. The symbol of Virgo in the sky. The New World Virgin Goddess Columbia was just a new manifestation of the ancient consort and Virgin Mother of God. Remember, the word virgin means wisdom, enlightenment. Depicted in Christianity as the Virgin Mary, Columbia was created out of Virginia and Maryland. Remember, the state of Virginia was also made a state on June 20th. That was something else that date was significant about. To the Masons, the square is the female aspect. Washington's original plan for D.C. was a large square with the future Washington Monument, which is the male phallic symbol, compass, at the center. In Egypt, the Trinity consists of Isis, Osiris, and Horus the sun. Isis can be seen as the ultimate female deity. Isis may be the oldest deity in Egypt. She is the oldest deity in Egypt, not maybe. She is. And certainly the oldest to survive the ages in much the same form. She may also be the most important, for although the other gods were worshipped widely, Isis was worshipped almost universally by all Egyptians. The major goddess of the Egyptian pantheon, she had many of the same attributes of the mother goddess found all over the world. Isis was as powerful, if not more powerful, than Osiris and Ra. Yeah, because she created them. Isis was also known as Sobdet, consort of Sa. Sobdet is Sothis in Greek. In the laminations of Isis and Nephthys, for Osiris, Isis calls herself Sobdet. Sobdet was also connected to the goddess Satet at Abu, Elephantine. Besides these names, the same aspects of any goddess can be found in Aphrodite, Ishtar, Black Madonna, Mary, Maya, Goddess Athena, Goddess Astarte, Anuet, Astarte, and Astarte Main. She was the light giver, at the season of the year that was called Kut. As the mighty earth goddess, her name was Usert. As the great goddess of the underworld, she is the Inanna. As the power which shot forth the Nile flood, she was Seti, or Sept, meaning September. September happens to be Sagittarius. No, I'm wrong. September, Sept. Or something. I need to connect the dots there. Something's there with that. I haven't connected the dots on it yet, but I will. As the embracer of the land and producer of fertility by her waters, she was Anket. As the producer and giver of life, she was Akhet. Ankhet. The word Ankh. As the goddess of cultivated lands and fields, she was Sekhet. As the goddess of harvest, she was Renenet. Now you understand why there's so many names for the goddess, and so many names for Gabriel, and so many names for Adonai, Michael, Enlil, Enki, Zeus, Poseidon. As the great lady of the underworld who assisted in transforming the bodies of the blessed dead into those wherein they were to live in the realms of Osiris, she was Amet, the hidden goddess. As Amet, she was declared to be the mother of Ra. To the Greeks, she was known as Demeter, and to the Romans as Ceres. To the Chinese protesters of Red Square as the goddess of democracy. Picture of the goddess. And, of course, the goddess of the New World, Lady Liberty, Columbia. The goddess can be represented in many ways. As Venus, she's depicted as, or on a clamshell. I remember as a kid we had a world map that was hanging in our house. And the goddess was on it, standing inside a clamshell. I had no idea what it meant. Not then. She is often depicted as a five-pointed star or wearing a pentacle as a crown. There's the triple goddess of the three phases of the moon. The flag of the District of Columbia has three five-pointed stars on it. The triple goddess, the three pentacles. If you look back, I showed you. I have three pentacles in my left hand. Why they're in my left hand? I'm not sure, but I'm sure there's significance and meaning behind that. The codes that I was getting from Gabriel and Adonai pointed and told me to look at my left hand. I have M's in both hands. Many of you have an M in one or both hands. It's because you're part of the bloodline. As the star Sirius, she is a blazing star and represents water in the color blue, the spirit of wisdom, and the brightly radiating one or shining one. That's why they call Lucifer God's chosen. She was the most beautiful. of all the archangels and the most powerful. She created them. The sycamore specifically was regarded as a manifestation of the goddess Nut, Isis, and Hathor, who had been given the title Lady of the Sycamore, also as the virgin Colombian flower with its 5 petals. As Inanna, Isis, Athena, and Minerva, she is often depicted with an owl. I have to show you something about now. A very interesting synchronicity. Destiny. It's a thing. But I'll show you that later. I needed to introduce you to the goddess and who she really is. But perhaps the most attributes come when in the form of Columbia. She is most often shown as an eagle, broken chains and pottery, a cornucopia, images of George Washington, a laurel wreath, a liberty pole and cap, a liberty tree, an olive branch, a rattlesnake, a shield, and a stone tablet. The statue of Columbia that used to stand behind the Speaker's chair in the House of Representatives is a fine example. In this one, we see the eagle, and on the other side, a snake coiled around a Greek column. Well, I don't know that she's represented by an eagle. I don't think so. That would be Zeus, Gabriel, in low. You see, that's the statue they're talking about. This represents Gabriel. The snake represents Enki, Adonai. It's also representative of goddess worship. For those who actually are in the know. She created them. Mother Earth, primal waters, constellations, and aliens. Genesis 1, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Early in Egyptian history, Isis had absorbed the attributes of all the great primitive goddesses, because she is all of them, and of all the local goddesses, such as Nekhebet, Uchet, Net, Bast, Hathor, etc. And she was even identified as a female counterpart of the primeval abyss of water from which sprang all life. She's the creator. And yes, she has many incarnations because she's tried to come here to help. The descent of Inanna and Mary Magdalene, the Virgin Mary as well. Remember, wisdom. The name Mary, also remember that Y can be an I, M-A-R-I, Marie. The name Mary could have some significance to its connection to the sea, the abyss, or the water of life, which brings fertility to the land in the form of rain or annual floods. Usual English form of Maria, which was the Latin form of the New Testament Greek names Miriam, Maria. The spellings are interchangeable. The Mari, M-A-R-I. Just so happens to be my last name now, Marian. And Marie is in the name, Marian. The well, I just connected some dots. Mimir's well is where you go to drink wisdom. Mimir's well. M-I-R. The word Miriam, and when I said virgin, means wisdom. You gain wisdom when you drink from Mimir's well. M-I-R, Miriam. There you go. Just connected some dots just now while we're talking. While I'm telling you this story about the goddess, who she really is, and how much they lied to you about her. Some interesting stuff about Mari, body of water, lake, sea, lake, pool, pond. Isis equal Sirius, Osiris equal Orion. Some people say and spell it Sirius, and others say Cirrus. They're the same thing. It's interesting because I guess a lot of the things that I named my animals and my children were all out of my higher self and my subconscious. One of my horses I named Cirrus. Fascinating how these things came out of my subconscious. I mean, in my past videos I shared that with you. Names that I named my children, animals. It was my higher self talking to me, giving me clues. The goddess star Ceres. In the ancient Vedas, this star was known as the chieftain star. In Hindu writings, it was referred to as Sakra, the rain god or rain star. The dog is also described as he who awakens the gods of the air and summons them to their office to bring the rain. This star was the most important of the stars to the ancient Egyptians, and to the helical rising of this star came at the time of undulation and start of the Egyptian New Year. She marked the summer solstice. Yes, she does mark the summer solstice. The age of Aquarius just started right on the summer solstice and the ring of fire, with a very grand eclipse where the moon eclipsed the sun. Do you see the synchronicity in the grand machine in the holodeck? Do you see the synchronicity? As above, so below. That card reading I did told us that we indeed entered the age of Aquarius. The old paradigm is over. It's time for a new one, where you are set free after so many incarnations here and having your minds wiped. How are you supposed to learn anything if your mind is wiped? And I can tell you who did that and why. How you were entrapped here and what they've been doing to you this whole time in the prison with no bars. She also is linked to the Pharaoh and his journey in the afterlife. It is interesting to note that Sirius is associated with the flood season, located just below the Dog Star. There exists a constellation called Argo, the ship. It's interesting because I believe on that world map that showed the goddess in the clamshell that was in the house when I was a kid, it seemed like there was a ship on that same map that looked very much like that. Like this image right here. Very interesting. Near the Canis Major constellation is the Column or Dove constellation, depicted with a twig in its mouth. The Dogon and Sirius. The Dogon are the ethnic group located mainly in the administrative districts of Bandigara and I don't know how to pronounce that. Forgive me, but I just don't. Duensa in Mali, West Africa. Dogon religion is defined primarily through the worship of the ancestors and the spirits. They were called the Nomo. The Dogon were famous for their astronomical knowledge taught through oral tradition, referencing the star system Sirius. As the story goes, in the late 1930s, 4 Dogon priests shared their most important secret tradition with 2 French anthropologists, Marcel and Germain, after they had spent an apprenticeship of 15 years living with the tribe. These were secret myths about the star Sirius, which is 8.6 light years from Earth. The Dogon priests said that Sirius had a companion star that was invisible to the human eye. You know, they talk about the red and blue Kachina. That's what they're speaking of. That's Sirius. Sirius A and Sirius B. The red and blue Kachina. They also stated that the star moved in a 50-year elliptical orbit around Sirius, and that it was small and incredibly heavy, and that it rotated on its axis. The Dogon's calendar is quite non-traditional in that its 50-year cycle is based neither on the Earth's rotation around the Sun, as the Julian calendar does, nor the cycles of the Moon, a lunar calendar. Instead, the Dogon culture centers around the rotation cycle Sirius B, which encircles the primary star Sirius A, every 49.9 or 50 years. Since 1844, astronomers had suspected that Sirius A had a companion star. This was in part determined when it is observed that the path of the star wobbled. In 1862, Alvin Clark discovered the second star, making Sirius a binary star system. The Dogon also claimed that a third star, Emmy Ye Sorghum, female, exists in the Sirius system. It is described by the Dogon as the seat of the female souls of living or future beings. The Nommo. Author Robert Temple describes the Nommo as amphibious beings sent to Earth from the Sirius star system for the benefit of humankind. That is true. Remember what I told you. I had a very amphibian-looking being trying to collect my DNA in my bedroom. And they were very shocked that they weren't able to keep me out while they did that, or tried to do that. That was probably to protect the line. That's what I assess now that was going on. They look like merfolk, mermaids, or mermen. They called the Nommo masters of the water, the monitors, the teachers or instructors, saviors, and spiritual guardians. The Dogon elder describes the Nommo as having the upper part as a man and the lower portion as snake, or having a ram's head with serpent body. You know, Poseidon is Adonai, and Poseidon had the mermaid's lower half. As the dog star. As the major star of the Big Dog constellation, Sirius is often called the dog star. The name Sirius comes from the Latin Sirius, Sirius, from Greek Sirios, glowing or scorcher. The Arabic word al-Shari resembles the Greek, Roman, and Egyptian names, suggesting a common origin in Sanskrit, in which the name Surya, the sun god, simply means the shining one. She's the most beautiful. And it's not a he. Lucifer is not a he. I don't care what anybody else told you. They lied to you. It's a she. This has been used to describe the origin of the phrase dog days of summer. Sirius was an object of wonder and veneration to all ancient peoples throughout human history. The association of Sirius with the celestial dog has been consistent throughout the classical world. Even in remote China, the star was identified as a heavenly wolf. In ancient Chaldea, present-day Iraq, the star was known as the dog star that leads, or it was called the star of the dog. In Assyria, it was said to be the dog of the sun. In still older Akkadian, it was named dog star of the sun. In Greek times, Adonis referred to Canis Major as the guard dog of Orion, following on the heels of its master and standing on its hind legs, with Sirius carried in its jaws. Menelaus called it the dog with the blazing face. She was occasionally depicted as a large dog, or in Roman times as a goddess Isis Sopdet. She was shown riding side saddle on a large dog. Sometimes she was depicted as a seated cow. Now here's something very fascinating that ties into that event that happened to me, where the being was riding. Remember I said it was riding a big dog and it was toying with me? Here we go. I'm just tying some dots together right now. She was shown riding side saddle on a large dog, and I had a being pass by me that was toying with me, or I felt like it was toying with me. Was that me toying with myself? Wow. That's kind of profound now that I think about it. It's like, because that whole incident was really weird, because that being ended up handing me some purple stones that burned my hand. She was also given a masculine aspect and linked with Horus as Subdet Horus during the Middle Kingdom. She was also linked with Anubis during Greek times as Subdet Anubis. Anubis was the head of a dog or jackal. I suspect that the Sphinx outside of the pyramid originally had Anubis, an Anubis head. Others have suspected that too, and I agree with them. I believe that is Anubis, or was at one time. Sirius and Orion over Washington. The Congress of Isis and Osiris just so happens to happen above Congress, the building of Congress in the United States. Washington, D.C. and many of its buildings and monuments are laid out according to the cardinal directions, with the streets running due north-south and east-west. In the map of Washington, D.C. below, due east is up, and the star chart shows the constellation of Orion rising due east over Washington, D.C., as it is done every day for the past 200 years. Orion's belt points towards Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, and while Orion is rising and low in the eastern horizon, Orion's belt is vertical, pointing to Sirius below. A lot of people fear what they don't understand. A lot of people have looked at Washington, D.C. and they think it was evil, that the original Masons were evil. They're wrong. The Masons were infiltrated. So now, yes. Back then, no. The original designers knew exactly what was going on. But everything's been infiltrated. Everything. In relation to the fixed stars, the sun rises later each day due to the rotation of the earth around the sun. The sun rises just after Sirius at the latitude of Washington, D.C. on August 15th. This is known as the heliacal rising of Sirius. Prior to this time of year, the sun is above or too close to the horizon for the rising of the star to be visible. Ancient Egyptians based their calendar on heliacal rising of Sirius, which signaled the onset of the annual flooding of the Nile. Christians celebrate the Assumption of the Virgin Mary on August 15th, linking the Assumption with the first appearance of Sirius, Isis, in the sky just before dawn. She is the brightest star in the sky. Orion is also set due west at the latitude of Washington, D.C. for the past 200 years. From the viewpoint of the Capitol building, Orion sets right behind the Washington Monument. Setting in the west, Orion's belt is horizontal, pointing to Sirius, setting south of due west. From the viewpoint of the Capitol building, Sirius sets over the Potomac River on the alignment of Maryland Avenue. Please excuse that in just for a moment. From the viewpoint of the Capitol building, Sirius sets over the Potomac River in alignment with Maryland Avenue. The bright star above Orion is Aldebaran, the alpha star in the constellation of Taurus. It's interesting because Nell is a Taurus sun. From the viewpoint of the Capitol building, Aldebaran sets over the White House on the alignment of Pennsylvania Avenue. It has already been established that the goddess can be symbolized by an owl. And you see the owl depicted here. There's the eyes, the body. Okay, we'll continue with this later. I'm going to do a part 2 because I know this is getting long. I hope you're paying attention. Like I said, follow me. I'll lead you through a story.